We have brought Jenn Kautsch back to talk more about her story in the gray area drinking because we both felt that there was so much more to tell. Listen in as Jenn talks about how she created SoberSis and her experience of rediscovering herself, building trust, and her hunger to gain practical tools and mindset shifts that helped her on her journey. If you are new here, you're listening to the How We Get Thru podcast, a place for you to feel connected through deep and meaningful conversations with healers from all over the world. I'm your host, Jenn, a licensed therapist and founder and CEO of the How We Get Thru app, and my mission is to bring you affordable and diverse therapy resources to help you get through the hard stuff, all in one place and at your own pace. Welcome to the How We Get Thru community. Hello and welcome back to the How We Get Thru podcast, you guys. This is a How We Get Thru first. We are doing a two-parter with Jenn Kautsch. Welcome back, Jenn.
Thank you for having me for a part 2 follow-up to our previous awesome conversation.
Yes. So if you haven't heard part 1, please go look at that or listen to that. It's episode 50. And Jenn really talks about her I feel like it's the first part of her experience in drinking and how she started later in drinking and what happened. And then we both were chatting on Instagram. We're like, wait, I feel like there's more to say here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me back, Jenn. Jenn with one N. We always joke we're both Jenns.
I know.
I'm 2 N's, you're 1. None's better than the other.
Sense.
They're both great. But yeah, I do. I loved our conversation, and you're such a good interviewer. Your podcast is so valuable to your listenership because you're so good at drawing people out and really letting them go deeper than they would naturally go with something they're used to saying. So I really appreciate you doing that with me, and it led me into some places of real reflection. And I appreciate you having me back because I do feel like we really honed in on a lot of the pain points and a lot of the years of struggle. And I'm excited to come back and really bring kind of the next part of the story, kind of the segue of what the last 7 years have been like, and really give people a lot of hope and a lot of empowerment. And again, it's not perfection, but how to really make progress. And that's what I'm excited to share.
Yes. And thank you so much for being open and honest because right here, it's just you and I talking, then it airs for millions of people to hear. So
put it out there. Let's see what
we're
happens.
doing it. Okay. So let's pick up, so we talked a lot about the pain points, but I think it is important to maybe pick up on the last pain point where you felt either was your rock bottom or what was the thing that was I need to change or it shouldn't be this way.
Yeah. That's a great starting point because I was really in my mid-40s. I was 45 years old, literally smack dab right in the middle of my 40s. And my oldest, my daughter, was turning 18. And she had turned 13, started the teenage years when I turned 40. She was wrapping up the teenage years just while I was in my mid-40s. And while I was watching her get to kind of reinvent herself and start a new chapter, I was really myself thinking, I really want to start a new chapter too. I've kind of gotten stuck in a rut of thinking. I always say I had more of a thinking problem than I did a drinking problem, because it really boiled down to my mindset. And I would say mentally, emotionally is where my relationship with alcohol was most misaligning. And I know we talked about it on your last episode 50, go listen, about this concept of gray area drinking and that there's a full drinking spectrum and you can change your relationship with alcohol at any time for any reason. And so, you asked, did I have a big rock bottom or what was the wake up call where it's wake up, you've got to change. Actually, it's very subtle. My relationship with drinking was subtle, how it entered in my life and then became of great value to me. Drinking became very valuable to me. Wow, this is the way I socialize, relax, comfort myself, cope, celebrate, commiserate. It doesn't matter. Alcohol was there. And so it had value to me. And so subtly over time, I realized it had more value than I wanted it to have. And that was kind of the wake-up call is I was a mom. I had an 18 and 16-year-old at the time and really had gotten in this detox to retox loop for years. And I was at the kitchen sink and I was on my third glass of wine after just gonna open a bottle and have a glass while I was cooking scenario. Anybody out there who's a regular kind of wine o'clock drinker probably knows what I'm talking about, where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna pop open a bottle and have a glass while I'm cooking. It's 5 o'clock. Totally appropriate. We're good to go. And then before you know it, you're kind of, topping it off or sipping on a second one because it's only 6 p.m. now. You've got the whole night to go. And then I was at the kitchen sink, literally on my third glass, thinking, oh, no, this is not my intention. How did I get here? And I think the wake-up call for me was, what am I doing living such a misaligned, divided life? The duplicity I felt of being mindful, responsible, wholehearted, almost performing during the day, and then looking for a way to check out, numb out a little bit, reward myself, wasn't a reward anymore. I was actually starting to find myself drinking more, but enjoying it less. And that's when it was like, okay, a little bit of a red flag went up, and I thought, this isn't really serving me anymore. And I knew deep down inside it was going to be the lead domino. If I could change my relationship with drinking, again, without having a big rock bottom, no DUI, didn't lose anything. I think really if you saw me out in the wild with my girlfriends at a girls' night out or an event, you would say, oh, she's just like us. She drinks like us. But in my heart of hearts, I knew that it had a higher value than I wanted it to have. And I just felt mental tug of war. I just felt so conflicted. And I wanted freedom. And so I thought, you know what? I know that changing my relationship with drinking is going to be the lead domino. Not quite sure how to do that. And that's what I'd love to share is what I learned, is how to do that. But it really, right before I turned 46 that summer, it became the change I was ready to make because I was so uncomfortable that I decided to change my uncomfortableness and go for something that was actually going to benefit me. Because what I found is pick your hard. It was already hard for me to manage drinking because it was something that I was at odds with myself about. And again, not every time. And sometimes I drank it and enjoyed it and it was great. But, that 80-20 rule, 80% of the time it seemed okay or seemed like it was serving me. But 20% of the time, not a great scene because I would lose my filter or I would get really weepy and sad because I'd had a few. And I'm like, I feel out of control because that's not me. And I wanted to be more authentically me and more wholehearted and kind of comfortable in my own skin going into what would soon be a new decade. So right in the middle, smack dab in the middle of my 40s, I thought, you know what? I really want to show up at 50 different than I did 40. What do I need to do to achieve that? It is not going to be a 30-day, juice cleanse or a new HIIT workout. It is going to take an overhaul from the inside out. And where am I most misaligned and where does it not add up? Like, where is there a gap between the best version of myself and the way I'm showing up? And the way I'm showing up wasn't bad enough. It just wasn't good enough for me. And so I embarked.
And yes. And I'm curious, like, relationally, was anybody like your kids or your husband or your friends being like, hey, something's not right or you don't feel right? Or was everybody kind of on this same plane of like, this is normal and we're okay?
Yeah. I would say for sure in all of my friend groups and family, extended family, everybody, no red flags, no reason for even noticing. I would say with my husband, yes, because behind closed doors, he got to see the other side of the divided Jenn. I think we talked about this last time. I love talking about the Enneagram, and I'm an Enneagram 1, which is also in the anger triad. And so just my personality, anger feels kind of bad, kind of wrong, even though I know consciously it's not. It feels kind of like I should be more mature. I should be above, really displaying anger. Anger seems like a less than emotion when really it's not. But I felt like that. And so I would suppress a lot of my anger and frustration in our different parenting styles or things that were really hard throughout the day, and then go on a date night or, kind of attend a big drinking event, like wheels off, like let's go. And he would just go to sleep. I would kind of rev up. And that's when I felt, okay, this isn't great for our relationship, because it's okay to be angry. It's okay to have feelings. But I want to come out sober-minded when I'm talking about those feelings and not under the influence. And so that wasn't great. That wasn't working. And then I would say with my kids, there were times that they were, because I'm so responsible, because I'm so mindful, because I'm so on it, when I at all kind of let loose, got glassy-eyed, seemed like I was not 100% present, even though it wasn't like stumbling, falling down drunk, crazy mom, like swinging from the chandeliers. Just my lack of presence, I think, was unnerving to their psyche, because they're like, our mom is like the most stable, safe person. And if she's kind of not all there, whoa, who is? And so that's a lot of pressure to put on myself to be all there, but in a way that was more performance oriented than like my authentic self. So I would say my family were like, mom and drinking sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work, but no one really knew how to ask what was going on under the hood. Like we didn't know how to pop the hood. And I was always afraid to talk about drinking, because I was afraid of a label or being judged, or quite honestly being misunderstood that I had a drinking issue, when, as I mentioned, I really had either a hurting heart, an overactive mind, anxiety. I had other things underneath my desire to use alcohol in any way that was negative. So I wanted to be seen for that, and I didn't know how to be seen for that.
I love that, because I'm a 9, so I'm also in the anger triad, and I feel very similar. Like my family knows me intimately, like they see everything. And then friends, even my closest friends, I'm like, what do you want to see?
Totally.
What can I show you? You know, it's so it is, again, when we talk about that mirror, like the family is like the hardest one to really sit with. But it's also like the most intimate one, and it's the most honest one. And really coming to terms with that is hard, because you're coming to terms with something in yourself.
Exactly. So those were tough years. So I think for me, literally, when I work with women now, a lot of times all these years later of being on my own journey and finding the freedom, I'm still really drawn passionately to talking about this day in, day out, because I still picture the woman at the kitchen sink who's maybe on that third glass, just playing small in their own life, trying to get out of the way, lay low, avoid the labels, avoid the judgment, avoid the chaos, not be misunderstood. They can't take it. I was fragile at that point, and I just almost couldn't even take more. So I have so much compassion for that me, as well as someone else who feels that way. Meanwhile, they're, the PTA president, they're at every carpool, they're doing everything right. They're high, not only high functioning, they are the overfunctioners. They're the overthinkers, the overfunctioners. And at that point, I realized, actually, I'm kind of over it. I'm just kind of over it.
So what did that look like for you afterwards? Like, what was the first thing that you Googled?
No joke.
How to stop drinking.
Well, and it was really exciting, because this is back in 2017. And here we are, 2024 at this interview, and y'all may be listening way later. I hope you are. But back in 2017, the Sober Curious movement was just really catching wind. It had really picked up in 2012 with a book that was written called Sober Curious. And there were some coaches and some podcasts and some books that started to emerge talking about the gray area and talking about an alcohol-free lifestyle. Whoa, like you can be gluten-free, you can be a vegan, you may be alcohol-free. That sounded so friendly compared to you're an alcoholic, you have a disease, you're an addict, you need to wear that for the rest of your life, and that's who you are. It was an identity that felt like it wasn't permanent. You could be curious, And in being curious, you could discover more of what was actually true and then change. And that really appealed to someone like me who was curious and didn't know how to change, because I kept thinking I had to get worse before I got better because I was in the middle.
Right.
Like, what do I need to do to like qualify for having to change and like, you know, like a rehab or AA?
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like more in the end of the spectrum than where I was or who I work with. And again, I do think drinking and any substance that is addictive ultimately is kind of heading one way. I do think it's a one-way highway. I don't think people typically love drinking or any kind of mind-altering substance and then do it less and less and less. I think if they love it and emotionally and mentally attached to it, they're going to do it more and more. So I think the spectrum is just, it's a slippery slope. Alan Carr, who wrote a great book called The Easy Way to Quit Drinking, calls it the pitcher plant. And there is an actual plant in nature. It is called the pitcher plant. It's a carnivorous plant. And what it does is it attracts bugs and flying insects to its nectar because it's so sweet and awesome. And they fly in and they fly out and they fly in and they fly out. They fly in a little deeper and they can fly out. But what happens is it's a carnivorous plant. So after a while, they start to realize the side of the inside of the pitcher plant. You can go to your local nursery, like your plant store, and find an actual pitcher plant. It's like a cup. It's like, it's really cool. God is such an amazing creator, designer to me. And so this pitcher plant literally lets them think that they can fly out at any time because it's not so carnivorous. It's like if you fly in once, you're done. You can fly in, fly out, fly in, fly out. But you fly in once too deep or too long, you'll stick. You'll stick to the side, and then you can't fly away. And then you realize, if you're the bug, the nectar is actually the juice from all the dead bugs. Gross.
Oh,
my
God.
I know. That's what the pitcher plant is. The actual nectar, the actual juice is the remains of those that got trapped and caught.
Damn.
So it's a great analogy for this. I hope that sticks with someone.
Literally.
Yeah. Because that's the challenge with something like gray area drinking. You can fly away. You can get out. You can stop. You can do a juice cleanse. You don't have to drink every day to feel normal. Although, I mean, we can get into science more. But so that's where I realized I could still fly out. But I was starting to realize it was getting sticky.
Yeah.
Real sticky. And I didn't want to get stuck. But I felt stuck. So that was huge for me in 2017 when I really started realizing there's another way. So I started reading, learning more about the science behind alcohol, learning how it was actually working in my body. I didn't know. I just thought I was a weak-willed person that needed to try harder. I didn't know that alcohol actually created a thirst for itself. Like it actually created a craving that I didn't have before I drank it.
Wow.
You know, like learning that really took away for me as again, the Enneagram 1, the moral perfectionist. It wasn't a moral issue. It was actually physical, mental, emotional. So I think for me, the biggest catalyst was learning instead of just trying through willpower, deprivation mindset. This is what I tried. Age 40 to 45, when I was circling the rim of the pitcher plant, is I tried things like willpower. Well, that can only get you so far because we all know that willpower fatigues. It's limited. It's finite. It gives out. And then I tried like deprivation mindset. Like if you want to lose weight, just eat less calories or work out more. I mean, that's, I guess, the science behind that. I think that's up for debate now these days as well. But, you know, or like just kind of shame yourself. Like if you wake up at 3 a.m. with a dry mouth and think to yourself, I did it again, then just beat yourself up and maybe just shame yourself enough that you won't do it again. Tried that too. That definitely didn't work. It actually made me want to drink more.
Yep.
Because I felt bad about myself. And then I tried, lastly, a lot of rules. Like I'll only drink on the weekends. Like I'm only going to drink white, not red. I'm only going to drink when I'm happy, not sad. I'm only going to drink with other people, never by myself. Like all these rules, which I could maintain until I couldn't. Like there was always something that rules are meant to be broken. And so after trying all those things, I tried learning. I tried being curious. I tried focusing more on progress, not perfection. And I started to learn practical tools for wine o'clock. Like, what do you do when it's 5 o'clock and you've always poured a drink? Because that's what you do. You're meeting a friend at a happy hour for drinks and you're trying to drink less or not at all. What do you do? And I started to lean into the practical ways to change.
Wow. I love that. And can I ask, like, what was happening emotionally, or like, who were you meeting while you were doing that?
Yeah. And I you bring up a great point, because I think for me, where I had lost the most connection was not with my husband, not with my children, not with my family or friends. It was with myself. I had literally at times almost abandoned myself in the heat of the moment, in the thick of it. I had lost me. And so I think emotionally, I had to start really baby stepping back to trusting myself again and setting myself up for success with just small wins. Like, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Now, I do that with everybody else all the time, no problem. I mean, I would never like stand somebody up or say to somebody else, I'm going to do something and then not do it. No way. I'm like dependable. Like, if you look up dependable in the dictionary, it would say Jenn Kautsch. I mean, I'm like ultra dependable, but not to myself. I would be like, oh, no, you can't do it, or you deserve this, or... So I think for me, emotionally, it was a real repair job from the inside out to begin to trust myself again. And at first I didn't. I was like, you're full of good intentions. But I don't think you're going to follow. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think I could do it. And I had to practice building small wins and gaining some momentum for myself.
So when you say trust, it's more of like trust that you could stop drinking, or that you didn't need it, or trust that you were like finding who you were, like, again, or for the first time.
Really,
I don't know.
All of the above. It was such a rediscovery time for me. And I do think it was, middle of my 40s. My oldest is finally graduating high school. I mean, it was a real pivotal point for like rediscovery anyway. I'd really lost myself in the mom years, in building different businesses with my husband, just the carpool, the golf practices, the cooking the same casserole again and again. Like, I'm sorry, y'all. It's baked spaghetti again. You will love it. No complaining. Or you made it. Okay, so we made it through. And so it was a reinventing. But I think what I was trying to get back to was the old me. The real me that was resilient and creative and confident without alcohol. And I outsourced so much of my confidence, resilience, really the belief that I can do hard things if I take the edge off. I can deal with, chaos in my home, teenager challenge, a hurt feelings, a miss with my husband. I can deal with that if I just take the edge off and not feel so acutely. But what happens is we just can't selectively numb. We can't selectively take an edge off without numbing all of our edges. And so what happened was, over time, I lost my own edge. I lost my edge in an effort to take the edge off. I sure did. I took it right off. And that's what I was trying to get back to, because we mentioned this on the first episode. In my 20s, I really wasn't a drinker. I mean, I had a drink here and there, but boy, you talk about take it or leave it. I'm leaving it. It was not a big deal. And so I knew what life was like. I had the benefit, and not everyone does, because I know a lot of your listeners, started drinking maybe in their teenage years, certainly their college years, and maybe have, kept on keeping on. I mean, just kind of the mommy wine juice culture. And before you know it, you're drinking in college, maybe you get married in your 20s, you're at the stress of, transitioning into maybe building a family. You can take a break while you're pregnant, but then it's like mommy wine juice kicks back in, and it's like, let's celebrate. Just from the day. And so I work with a lot of women who've been drinking for decades, years. For me, I did have a place to go back to where I knew myself really well as an adult, as a young adult, not drinking. So it felt familiar to me to go back to a place where I didn't need it. But I'd bought into the lie for so long that I did. It was like a breakup. It was literally like a breakup.
Grief.
Yeah.
What did you look like emotionally? If you're pulling all your edges back on, did it feel heavy? Did it feel messy? Did it feel like, is your husband like, what's happening with you? Or like, oh, I'm so glad to see you? Like, what?
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, I got to tell you, it was a bumpy road. It was a bumpy road at first because you're exactly right. All the things I was numbing, escaping, suppressing, denying, just pushing aside was starting to come to the surface. And I think this is where connection really comes in. And that's why I love what we're doing with SoberSis as a community, because you got to be with other like-minded women who are ripping off the Band-Aid and going, wow, this is why I drank. I mean, I can see it now as plain as day in navigating that. So I was definitely at times more emotional. Some of that anger would come out, but it wouldn't come out as sideways. It would come out more like authentically, like I feel angry, and I could use my words instead of feeling like I'd used my words before and they didn't get very far. So now I'm just going to numb them out and then they're going to come out sideways. This was a lot more intention.
I love that. And we were talking before we came on about that book, I Shouldn't Feel This Way, but I feel like that's exactly what is happening when we suppress. We're like, I shouldn't feel this, I shouldn't feel this. But what if we could accept this part of ourselves? What if we could love it? What if we could empower it? What if we could take care of it? Would we have a different relationship with that feeling? Which, I mean, I'm saying that, but today I lost my crap on my daughter. So like, I like work in progress here. But I shamed myself right after it. And I'm like, I'm such a bad mom. I can't believe I did that.
Why can't
and
I
I'm like,
get it together? Why am I so affected? I was always so frustrated that I was so affected. I wish that I could just be like a duck and let it just like roll off of me, just like roll off. And instead I like absorbed like a sponge. And so one of the things that I had to work on, especially that first year of switching any kind of lifestyle habit that's so socially acceptable, so socially glamorized, is really discovering your own boundaries. Like, what are your boundaries? And so I started, whipping out my old boundary books and applying it to my sober-minded life and realizing I was such a people pleaser and trying so hard with my one strong nine wing to stay out of the fray, not get hurt, not disrupt my inner peace. Meanwhile, I'm like annihilating my inner peace because of the conflict inside. So it really wasn't peaceful. I was just avoiding external chaos, but internal chaos was enough for me. And so, doing a lot of boundary work. And like you said, just giving myself permission to feel the feels instead of like, I shouldn't feel this way. You do feel this way. You can have conflicting feelings, both and. I feel this and I thought a lot of times I think I was living in a real black and white binary world that was like good, bad, right, wrong, yes, no. And then I found myself in this gray area of drinking and I realized, wait a minute, there are a lot of other gray areas. I'm complex. You're complex.
Yes.
We're complex. We can't quite put ourselves in a box like that. And just the kindness and compassion when we do make mistakes or show up differently than we really intended, but yet still authentically, because that's how we felt in the moment. Like, grace for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what did your community look like? Like, who were you reaching for at that time?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of in and out. I mean, I did find coaches and coaching programs that had, Facebook groups or kind of coached from afar. But what I was really looking for and what I had not found really that whole first year of not drinking was somebody up close and personal that I could literally like see their life and see them doing it. Not just talking about doing it, but actually showing me that they're doing it and how they're doing it. I kind of wanted someone that would kind of bring me with them. Like, I use the pop the hood analogy. I wanted to get in the car. I wanted to be like, are you legit? I mean, like, what are you really doing? I get the concepts. Thank you for that. That's helpful. But like, I wanted a guide. I wanted a leader that I could see more of their life. And not every program leader or coach is called to do that. But I felt like that's what I was really wanting, with someone who was like, she's the carpool mom. She's literally the mom next door. Yeah. And she's got a husband that drinks too. Yeah. She's doing that. So I really found that I could not find that. And I also wanted to bring in a holistic point of view. I wanted to bring in the mind, body, and spirit. And I wanted to bring in the mind because just the mindset work, the neuroscience behind how to change a habit and how to literally change your mind, i.e. really ultimately change your brain. Yeah. And I started learning that the mind and the brain are two different things. And that was fascinating. So I started really wanting to bring that in. So I'm a Christian, I'm a person of faith. So that was great. When I went to a Bible study or a church group, no science. People aren't talking about neuroscience. They're just like praying more that whatever problem will go away or get better. And again, I get the power of prayer, but like, I think it's got to be combined
with action,
with partnering and practical things and like body science. I mean, if you're craving a drink, there's something physiological going on. And that's why I think bringing it all together for me is something that I was looking for, where it wasn't just heavy on one thing and not on the other. I wanted a balanced view. And so that's what I ended up creating really at the beginning of 2018. I'd been alcohol-free at that point about 8 months. And at that point, was really not tethered to a group. I was pretty much a lone ranger. Again, listening to podcasts, reading books, starting to catch on that there was a community forming in the sober, curious world. And definitely people had gone ahead, but I just wasn't finding someone quite like me that I was looking for. And that's when I kind of got a tap on the shoulder. Call it the universe, call it God. I felt like there is a calling on my life now, a special assignment I've been given, not because I'm so special. It wasn't because I was special. It was because the message and the mission was special. And I knew that if more women, just like me, I'm just like really the girl next door, seriously. Yeah. If I was struggling and I could figure it out and find hope and freedom, maybe other people could too, that were just like, tell me how to do it and I'll do it, but I don't want to do it alone. And I really want to bring all parts of me. It's bringing all the parts. And that's what I ended up creating with SoberSis. Again, not knowing how it would go, not knowing that it would come to this 6 years later, that it would turn into what it has. But I just set out on a journey to share what had worked for me, because I was actually so mystified and amazed that I was alcohol free and I felt free. That was the goal, was not to be sober, but to be sober minded, awake, alert, aware, and present in my own life. I know I'm AKA SoberSis. I'm wearing my logo hat today, but I don't really identify so much as being sober, because to me personally, this is just my own take on it, I think the word sober is really stigmatized and actually stereotyped. And I would love to change that. I think there's a stigma to sobriety, which is unfortunate because there's a stigma to alcohol as well. It's just like, can you win? Right. If there's a stigma to drinking or not drinking, how about there be no stigma and you just do you? And so I really wanted to change the conversation to being more sober-minded versus just sober, meaning abstinence from alcohol or any other addictive substance. To me, that's what sober means. And I technically am an alcohol-free person, but I really identify as being sober-minded, because that's all-encompassing to all the parts of me, not just what I'm drinking.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I also respect you as a businesswoman. And so I'm so curious of like, did you just start a community because you wanted a community, or did you start a business right away and then it kind of went that way?
I really started a community because I wanted a community that
Yeah,
that I
there
could
it
feel a
is.
part of, that was kind of like working on all cylinders. But I
Yeah.
quickly realized, I mean, it did not take long, that I wasn't the only one feeling this way, and that if I was truly going to scale, i.e., reach the most women as possible, I could treat this like a hobby or a ministry, or like writing
Mhm.
emails and blogs and just sharing it with people. And I could make a little dent. I could move the needle a little bit in the conversation. But if I treated it like a business, if I ran it like a
Mm,
business with the heart and soul of
yeah,
serving and supporting other women, not as like profit center,
right,
how can I make money on other people's sobriety and issues? But
right.
literally, how can I scale? I would have to do that in a business model, because I couldn't scale alone. I would have a
Yeah,
team. I would have
right,
to have a team, and that team would incur expenses, and ads would have to be put out there, because how are people going to find me
right.
in the haystack of, I'm the
Everything.
needle in the haystack. How are they going to find me? So it didn't take long. It was probably end of 2018 that I started charging for what I was doing.
Wow.
I didn't start charging immediately. I gave everything away for free for a
That's
month. And
uh,
then I realized I'm starting to incur monthly expenses, a few $100s. Okay, no
yeah,
problem. I mean, I really feel passionate about this, babe. And then it
yeah.
became, okay, we're at a crossroads. We can
Uh,
spend X amount per month just to help others, and can consider that almost like a contribution to the
yeah,
world. Or we can scale it, hire a team, really optimize my voice and the
yeah.
message. And that's what we chose to do. And the
And when
rest
you
is
say
history.
we, is that you and your husband? Was he along for the ride from the beginning?
He was. He
Yeah.
was, Jen.
And
He was really a huge part of,
uh,
ironically, I joke all the time and I say he was a trigger for me, as well as like the best thing that ever happened for SoberSis, because he is such a visionary. He is an
mm,
entrepreneur, visionary, big picture guy. And I don't think it's by accident at all that God led us to each other to become partners in life,
yeah,
in building a
yes.
family and everything, because his skill set is exactly, like hand in glove, exactly what I needed to pull this off. Because
Wow.
I, by myself, could have done it if I would have had the wherewithal to figure it all out. But to have a partner that's like, you know what? I want to make your voice louder. It wasn't because he was
Mm,
a sober bro.
yeah,
People
right.
ask me that all the time. Is there a sober bro? Well, there's not a sober bro
No.
community or in my house. There's
Yes.
not. He is still he's still a drinker, and we've navigated those waters. Sometimes they get
Yeah.
choppy, but overall I've just learned how to stay in my own lane. And this
Yeah.
is something I'm doing, but he is extremely supportive. So when I say we, I mean he rolled up his sleeves and started helping me. Get the
Uh,
URL, start
yeah.
hiring coaches for us in a business sense, and
Wow.
started
Yeah.
getting in groups where we could learn the technology that it would take to
Uh,
scale an operation like this, which
wow.
is really building a community of women that have a consistent experience with what we offer, and then are
Uh,
welcome to stay in that community ongoing. So,
I love
yeah,
that.
so we started just with every skill that we'd ever learned from being married, being business owners, being parents, being
Right.
just leaders in other areas. We combined it all and put it together, and
Uh,
then did our best, prayed to God, and left the outcome up to
yeah.
Him.
And here we are today.
And here we are.
Wow. Okay, one last question, and then I want you to talk about the SoberSis community a little bit more. Where do you see SoberSis in 5 years?
That is a great question.
I
At
know,
that
I'm
point,
so
I'll be
sorry.
getting closer to 60.
Yeah.
So I did, just for the record, I did show up at 50, different than I did 40.
Yes, we
Um,
did it.
It did take me 4 years to get to 50 from the minute I really turned on the personal growth dial, if you will. Once I turned the dial, like, let's turn it up to start growing. So now I'm 53. I'm an empty nester. Our kids are 26 and 24 at this time.
Wow.
And so in 5 years from now, I think that's a great question. I mean, my people, my kids, my children, my adult children have not yet found their people. But I think once they find their people, that, you know, they want to start a family too. And so that'll put me in, like, not sad, exciting to say, like, the grandma zone. But actually, I work with a lot of grandmothers. I work with 30-somethings, middle-agers like myself, and grandmas who want to be more present and not tipsy grandma trying to hold the baby. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And their kids have said something to them like, "I love you, Mom, but, like, if you're a couple of glasses in and you're picking up little Joey at 20 pounds, you know." So in 5 years from now, I mean, I think what we've built in SoberSis is so solid and so secure as far as the network of women that are so committed to each other. What I've learned is I am the face of SoberSis. I'm the leader. I'm the guide. I'm the tip of the spear. But it's not about me. It's not the Jenn Kautsch show. It's not all about Jen. It's about them. It's about us. I always say I'm AKA SoberSis, but really SoberSis is thousands of women that would stand behind me right now. Thousands of women who would stand up and say, I'm a SoberSis. It's an identity. And that is so strong that even with all my coaching programs and everything, even if we just said, let's just keep a community, that alone would be strong. And I'm really hoping that with my book that came out last year and the opportunity to do more speaking, that I can now take the message, now that I've honed in on my voice. You know, it took some time. Right out of the gate, I was really just a curator. I was literally 8 months in, finding out all these new tools, and I was like the curator of the best of what I found. And I was sharing everyone else's stuff, their link, giving them all the credit for sure, because they deserve that. That's their work. But just going, hey, I've combined what I have found. Listen to this TED Talk. Watch this podcast. Check this out. But after a few months of that, I realized, wait a minute. I'm talking about this all day, every day. I'm starting to find my own voice. Well, now I've definitely found that voice. And I think everyone that taught me what I've learned up to this point in every genre. I mean, I don't care if it's therapy, mindset, neuroscience, the alcohol-free world, everybody and everything. But I think after a while, you start to bring your own nests to the table. I call it my Jen nest. You've got Jen nest as well.
Love that.
And I think that hopefully can speak uniquely to someone who might need to hear the message in a certain way. And so I've got some real upcoming things that I'm excited about doing, because I want to get on stages, not because I love the limelight and that's easy for me. It actually scares me to death, which is good, because that lets you know you're doing it probably for the right reasons. I'm not like, give me the microphone. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to learn some technology here with the slides. You know, I feel confident about what I'm saying, but you know, it's a big deal. That's why our mutual friend, Katie Q, is such a great coach for storytelling and speaking. So, like, I've got a gig with MomCon. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Mom Co. That I've been invited to be a speaker at their event in October this fall in Denver, and there's 4,000 or 5,000 attendees that are moms, probably in their 30s. And so I get to do 2 Sober Curious workshops at this huge event, and I'm so excited about it. And it's taking me out of my comfort zone, because I've done so much virtually. I'm like, give me a Zoom call, let's go. I know what I'm doing there, but you give me like a travel schedule and an Uber and but see, I've learned through being sober-minded that I can do hard things, that I can do things afraid. And guess what? People would rather know the real me than the perfect me and the polished me. I think if you're like, oh my gosh, you really are like me. You're just a little bit down the road. Instead of like, oh, I could
Absolutely.
never do that. I'm here to say you can.
Yeah.
You can do anything you really want to. You really can.
Yeah. And that's what I think, again, is so unique and special about you is your relatableness and your story. Like,
Yeah.
yes, throw in the neuroscience, throw in the mindset, but your story in the rawness of it, in the ups and downs of it, that is what is relatable. And again, you're creating a category for a lot of us that don't fit into sober or alcoholic. Like,
Right.
and that is a lot.
That's
A
a
lot of
lot of
people.
people.
It's
I
a
mean, if you
lot of
really
people.
look at the
If not,
alcohol-centric society we live in, picture it almost like a bell curve where it's like, anyone who drinks ever is on the drinking spectrum, even if
right.
that's like, oh, I just drink once a month at this, networking event. Okay, that's cool. You're a drinker. You just drink once a month. You don't care. Maybe you're like a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. And I hate like numbering people in this way, but like, let's just say for analogy, you could take it or leave it. You really do leave it more than you take it, but you're not sure how to do a wedding without a couple of drinks at the toast and to dance. Okay,
Yeah.
you're on the drinking spectrum. That's okay. We live in a world that just encourages that. Like it's a social lubricant. I get it. And then, somewhere in there you find, well, now it's, a margarita with the Mexican food. It's the red wine with the steak. It's the beer on the boat. Before you know it, the associations are so strong that you realize, wow, effectively, I can drink every day somewhere with someone and it'd be totally socially acceptable. And so where do you draw the line for you? And so that is that gray area, I think, where it's like, okay, where do I fit in here? Where do I want to be in my relationship with alcohol? And is it too valuable to me that I'm assigning it so much value that if I don't have it, I'm physically okay, but I'm mentally, emotionally miserable, or I'm depriving myself or feeling left out or less than. That's like a red flag.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And again, I think you're speaking to the majority of
I think that's
Americans.
a lot of people. And then you throw in like COVID and the pandemic where people were kind of more take it or leave it drinkers. And then before they knew it, they were stuck at home, and then the pressure and the stress of like homeschooling abruptly or working from home. And I've worked with a lot of women who were like, and it could be empty nesting, it could be grieving, it could be any kind of catalyst where your drinking was kind of semi-normal. I guess you could say par for the course, no big deal. And then something changes in your life circumstantially. And I think that's where drinking is almost like teed up. It's like ready to go. To pour gasoline on a smoldering fire of anxiety. Well, what if you lose your job? Okay, that's a lot of anxiety. So if you've just been kind of drinking to numb the edge, you may find yourself drinking more when the edge completely falls off. You're like, oh my gosh, to cope. I see that with a lot of people. And again, that was a lot my story.
Yeah. So if somebody wants to join the SoberSis community, what does that look like? What would be the first step?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking, because I think it's so important, practically speaking, to hear the good news that there is hope, and then go, okay, now literally, what do I do? I do have a free guide out there for any woman listening. I do work with just women, so sorry guys if you have any males in your audience.
Sober bro.
They may have a wife or a sister. But I have a free guide if women just go to SoberSis.com/free guide, free-guide, whatever. The link's in my bio on Instagram.
We'll put it in the show notes too.
Oh, good. Yep.
Free guide.
That's a great place to start. I think the 21-day reset is also really the first step into the community. But I work with a lot of women who are like, I just need help this weekend.
I'm ready.
Like, I'm just going to try to do, a holiday or a wedding, or I just want to travel and not drink because I don't want to miss out from a hangover at an all-inclusive, but I know drinks are going to be in my face. I mean, what do I do? So I like to help women with just take this free guide. These are my top 5 strategies for wine o'clock tonight.
Perfect.
Tonight. So I think that's really the best starting spot. And that way you can kind of get to know me a little bit, get to know, my Ness, and really ultimately want to get to know you too. And that's where we bring you into the 21-day reset challenge. That begins at the beginning of every month. And we just invite women, again, all different ages, all over the world, all different relationships with drinking, but everyone has in common that they want to hit the reset button. they're physically able to do that, but mentally, emotionally really need the support. And that 21-day reset challenge has honestly helped thousands of women.
Yeah.
Just take a break, hit the reset button. And then from there, I have more resources for women who want to keep going and growing.
Love that. And the name of your book again is?
Yeah, the name of it is Look Alive, Sis.
Look Alive, Sis.
Look Alive, Sis.
Look Alive, Sis. I was like, it's Sober Up, Sis? No, Look Alive, Sis.
And I named it that because when I worked
that.
with the literary agency that I hired to help me, because, well, I never read the book. Again, everything I'm doing is like, wait a minute, I'm a stay-at-home mom. How do I write a book, And so you just learn so much as you go. But one of the things they said is when naming your book, what's one of your taglines that you literally find yourself saying? And we did all kinds of brainstorming, and I was like, you know what? I always say, look alive, man. Look alive, sis.
Yeah.
Like, this is your own life. This is your one life. Look alive, because, times are crazy. Things are chaotic. Like, look alive. And we named it that. So it's 40 days to awaken your sober mind. It's like a 40-day reader. I need to send you a copy if you don't have one.
Yes. Awesome. Jenn, thank you so much for coming again on part 2. A first for us, but I think, again, I just wanted more of you, and I wanted to connect with you again. And I think a lot of other of the listeners too wanted to know, okay, what else? Yeah. I think we did such a beautiful job of diving deep and really hitting hard. And now it's like this arc of, okay, and this is how you dug yourself out of the pitcher cup.
That pitcher plant.
I
tell you, Google it, people. Google it. It's kind of intense.
Yeah.
Kind of intense in the plant world.
Exactly. I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
That's good. Yes, we'll put all of that in the show notes, the free guide, the book, and the 21-day reset.
Great.
And then SoberSis on Instagram. And thank you so much for what you're doing out in the world.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm really, really glad to be here. Grateful.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If this episode piqued your interest and you want to know more, check out Jenn's free guide on SoberSis.com and in our show notes. And lastly, if you are loving what you're hearing, please give us a review up on Apple Podcasts so that we can continue to reach and help others. Thank you. We'll see you next time.